Hare Krishna, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We continue reading from Caitanya Caritamrita Adi-Lila. We are on chapter 7, speaking of the glories of the Panchatattva. Text 52. Iha shuni rahe Prabhu ishadhasiya, se kale eka vipramalila asiya. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. While Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar were thus talking with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he only smiled slightly and remained silent. At that time, a Brahmana came there to meet the Lord. So yesterday we were hearing that how Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar, they're not happy to hear blasphemy of the Lord. And they were like telling the Lord, we are going to go commit suicide. You please do something about it. So at that time, the Lord didn't say anything. He's only smiled. But a Brahmana comes there. Because the blasphemy was cast against Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he did not feel sorry and therefore he was smiling. This is ideal Vaishnava behavior. One should not become angry upon hearing criticism of himself. But if other Vaishnavas are criticized, one must be prepared to act as previously suggested. So what happens is we get upset when somebody criticizes us. How dare she or he said this to me? Don't they know how great I am? They really don't know my worth. They don't know how great I am. I'm going to show how great I am. But we are supposed to act the complete opposite, that we should tolerate against the criticism against us. But if a Vaishnava is being criticized, then that we should not tolerate. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very compassionate for his pure devotees, Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar. Therefore, by his grace, this Brahmana immediately came to him. By his omnipotency, the Lord created this situation for the happiness of his devotees. So we can see how the Lord is Bhaktavatsal. He's Bhaktavatsal. You see, the Lord is always fulfilling all our desires. Whatever is our desires, he's always fulfilling that. So our mind creates so many material desires, accepting, rejecting, accepting, rejecting. And so that's the reason we continually remaining in this material world. Why? To fulfill these desires. Now the pure devotees of the Lord, what are their desires? Their desires are always in connection with the Lord. How to please the Lord, how to see the Lord happy, how to glorify the Lord. And so the Lord also fulfills their desires. We can see that he's just fulfilling all our desires. So here, the pure devotees, they were being sad. So he wanted to fulfill their desires. So he created a situation. A Brahmana comes at that time. And let's hear what happens. Asi nivedana kare charane dariya eka vastu mago deha prasana haiya. The Brahmana immediately fell at the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and requested him to accept his proposal in a joyful mood. The Vedic injunctions state, Tadviti pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. One must approach a superior authority in humbleness. Krishna says to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, text 34, how should we approach a person a spiritual master? How? So in humility. One cannot challenge a superior authority, but with great submission, one can submit his proposal for acceptance by the spiritual master or spiritual authorities. So when we are approaching a superior, and then we need to approach with humility. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an ideal teacher by his personal behavior, and so also are all his disciples. Thus, this Brahmana, being purified in association with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, followed these principles in submitting his request to the higher authority. He fell down at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then spoke as follows. So the question of etiquette. Sakala Sannyasi Muni Kainu Nimantrana Tumi Yadi Aisa Purna Haya Moramana. My dear Lord, I have invited all the sannyasis of Benares to my home. My desires will be fulfilled if you also accept my invitation. This Brahmana knew that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the only Vaishnava sannyasi in Benares at that time, and all others were Mayavadis. It is the duty of a grahas to sometimes invite sannyasis to take food at his home. This Grahas Brahman wanted to invite all the sannyasis to his house, but he also knew that it would be very difficult to induce Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to accept such an invitation. Why? Because the Mayavadi sannyasis would be present. Therefore, he fell down at his feet and fervently appealed to the Lord to be compassionate and grant his request. Thus, he humbly submitted his desire. So, this Brahman is a grahas. Duty of a grahas is to invite the devotees, the sannyasis. So, the Brahmana, he's invited all the Mayavadi sannyasis, and the only Vaishnav sannyasi at that time in Benares was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the Brahmana knew that Lord Chaitanya is not going to come because there's all the others are Mayavadis. He'll say, what will I do with them? So he's approaching with great humility, falling down at the feet, humbly, please come. Na yaha sannyasi goshti iha ami jani more anugraha kara nimantrana mani. My dear Lord, I know that you never mix with other sannyasis, but please be merciful unto me and accept my invitation. An acharya or great personality of the Vaishnav school is very strict in his principles. But although he is as hard as a thunderbolt, sometimes he is as soft as a rose. Thus, actually, he is independent. He follows all the rules and regulations strictly, but sometimes he slackens this policy. It was known that Lord Chaitanya never mixed with the Mayavadi sannyasis, yet he conceded to the request of the Brahmana, as stated in the next verse. So the Lord, Srila Prabhupada is saying that the pure devotee can be as hard as a thunderbolt, yet as soft as a rose. Prabhu hasi nimantrana kaila angikar sannyasi re kripa lagiye bhangi tanhar. Lord Chaitanya smiled and accepted the invitation of the Brahmana. He made this gesture to show his mercy to the Mayavadi sannyasis. Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar appealed to the lotus feet of the Lord regarding their grief at the criticism of him by the sannyasis in Benares. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu merely smiled, yet he wanted to fulfill the desires of his devotees. And the opportunity came when the Brahmana came to request him to accept his invitation to be present in the midst of the other sannyasis. This coincidence was made possible by the omnipotency of the Lord. So Lord Chaitanya is the Lord himself. He's creating this situation because his devotees are unhappy. They don't want to hear the blasphemy. And so Lord Chaitanya is creating a situation by which he can give mercy to the Mayavadi sannyasis. Se viprajanina prabhuna yana kara ghare tanhar preranaya tanre atyagraha kare. The Brahmana knew that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu never went to anyone else's house. Yet, due to inspiration from the Lord, he earnestly requested him to accept this invitation. So Lord Chaitanya, we heard that he was living in Chandrasekhar's house and he would go to Tapan Mishra for his meals. He would not go anywhere else. But the Lord is creating this situation. He's creating this situation that the Brahmanas come to invite him. Then Aradine Gela Prabhu said Prabhavane Dekhilena Ve Vasiya Chena Sanyasi Ragane. The next day when Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the house of that Brahmana, he saw all the sannyasis of Banaras sitting there. This is a very interesting pastime of how Lord Chaitanya gives mercy to all the Mayavadi sannyasis, and we can read this tomorrow due to time constraint now, although I don't want to stop it now, but because of time restrictions. We'll stop here, but we'll continue reading this pastime tomorrow. Did anyone want to comment anything or add anything, say anything to what we read? If no, then we'll stop here for today. Thank you so much for listening and joining in. Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai, Hare Krishna. Please join in tomorrow to continue with this fast.